5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. The matter before the court concerns a breach of the constitutional right to property as guaranteed under the fundamental rights. The petitioner has filed a writ petition seeking redress against an unlawful eviction carried out by authorities, which has resulted in the deprivation of their property without due process of law. The petitioner contends that the eviction was carried out in violation of statutory provisions and without providing an adequate opportunity for hearing, thus infringing upon their right to property. The facts of the case are as follows. The petitioner has been in possession of a piece of land for several years, during which time they have developed and utilized the property in accordance with the relevant regulations. The petitioner has continuously paid the requisite taxes and has adhered to all local zoning laws and regulations. However, on a certain date, the local authorities, without providing any prior notice, initiated an eviction process, claiming that the petitioner was occupying the land unlawfully. The petitioner was neither served with an eviction notice nor informed about any legal proceedings or orders that would justify such an action. The authorities acted in an arbitrary manner, entering the premises and forcibly removing the petitioner from their property, all while denying the petitioner the right to be heard in a fair and transparent process. It is contended that such an action not only disregarded the rights of the petitioner but also violated the principles of natural justice, which require that no person shall be deprived of their property without a fair hearing or without being given an opportunity to contest the action. The petitioner's right to property, which is protected under the Constitution, has been violated by the unlawful actions of the authorities. It is well established that property rights are fundamental and cannot be taken away arbitrarily. In this case, the petitioner asserts that there was no legal basis for the eviction, nor was any order from a competent authority issued to justify the encroachment on their property rights. The act of eviction, being unilateral and unjustified, constitutes an infringement of the petitioner's constitutional rights. In addition to the violation of the right to property, the petitioner has suffered significant emotional and financial distress as a result of the unlawful eviction. The eviction has caused the petitioner to lose not only their home but also their livelihood, as they were conducting business on the property at the time of eviction. The petitioner has submitted that the unlawful and abrupt removal from the premises has led to financial losses, including the destruction of valuable assets and disruption of their business operations. The petitioner contends that this act of eviction, carried out without due process, has caused irreparable harm and trauma. Moreover, the petitioner has alleged that the authorities did not comply with the legal requirements mandated under the relevant statutes and regulations governing the eviction process. The authorities failed to issue a notice, failed to seek the approval of a competent tribunal, and did not follow the prescribed legal procedure for evictions. The petitioner argues that such a failure amounts to a violation of procedural fairness, a core tenet of due process in administrative law. The failure of the authorities to follow due procedure is a critical aspect of the petitioner's case, as the law requires that all such actions be conducted in accordance with well-established principles of transparency and accountability. The petitioner has sought the following reliefs before this honorable court. Firstly, an order for the immediate restoration of possession of the property to the petitioner, as the eviction was carried out unlawfully and without due process. Secondly, the petitioner has sought compensation for the financial loss and emotional distress suffered as a result of the eviction. Lastly, the petitioner has requested a declaration from the court that the actions of the authorities were unconstitutional and unlawful, and that such acts must not be repeated in the future. The core issue in this case is whether the authorities can act unilaterally in depriving an individual of their property without following the prescribed legal process. The petitioner's case is built upon the argument that property rights are inalienable and must be protected by the state, and that any deprivation of property must be carried out in a lawful and just manner. The eviction, which was executed without due notice, without a hearing, and without judicial oversight, was a clear violation of these principles. Additionally, the petitioner has argued that the actions of the authorities constitute an abuse of power. The arbitrary exercise of power without legal authorization undermines the rule of law and threatens individual rights. In a democratic society, it is essential that the exercise of state power is circumscribed by the rule of law, and that individuals are afforded the opportunity to challenge any actions that may infringe upon their fundamental rights. The petitioner has therefore requested the court to scrutinize the conduct of the authorities and hold them accountable for their actions. The case at hand also raises broader questions about the importance of protecting property rights and the need for safeguards to prevent arbitrary state action. Property is a fundamental right, and any attempt to deprive an individual of their property must be supported by a legitimate legal basis and should not be carried out in a manner that is inconsistent with the principles of justice and fairness. The petitioner's case underscores the need for judicial vigilance in ensuring that public authorities do not overstep their bounds and infringe upon the rights of individuals. The authorities have been put on notice that their actions are under scrutiny, and they must justify their actions before the court. The petitioner contends that the failure of the authorities to act within the bounds of law amounts to a serious breach of constitutional principles, and has called for the court to issue a ruling that reinforces the sanctity of property rights and the need for procedural fairness in all matters related to the deprivation of property. Stop.